If you feel sexy when you're like walking on the beach, or you feel like yourself when you're in nature or when you're in the woods, that's sexy. Like, however you are when you're most alive and you're most yourself, like that is what sexy is for you.
Okay, welcome back to Confidently Uncomfortable. I'm so glad that you guys are listening because I have a very special guest for today. It's someone who I've met through mutual friends, but then also we had a really great experience going through a program together that was really focused on mind-body connection. NLP, if you guys have heard me talk about neurolinguistics programming, this woman brings all of that and more when it comes to what she does. She is a somatic, sensuality, and intimacy coach. She really helps connect you with your sensuality and pleasure in a way for you to step into your most authentic self. And I'm so inspired by all that she's sharing. So I want to welcome Hannah Deindorfer today. And thank you so much for being here, Hannah.
Thank you, Jordan. I'm so appreciative of you having me. I'm so excited to do this. It's going to be so fun.
Yes, I can't wait. I was just talking to Hannah before we hit record. I was telling her all about y'all's Feel Good Naked Challenge that so many of you have been a part of. And of course, she's riding right along with it because of her background. And I'm really looking forward to hearing a lot that she has to teach us, but then also seeing how connected you've gotten with yourself and you've really stepped into your authenticity. And so many people want that. But I know you also talk about recovering people pleasing and breaking up with the perfectionist mindset. And so many people have definitely dealt with that. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about you stepping to that full authentic, like fully being naked, as I call it, self versus where you are now. I'd love to hear a little bit more about you.
Oh, for sure. The reason why I'm so passionate about helping people is because I've been where they've been and checked most of the boxes of traumatic experiences that you can imagine. When I was really young, I ended up in a situation where I was taking care of my mentally ill father. I had multiple abusive and sexually abusive relationships. And by the time I was 19 years old, I had a really severe eating disorder, almost was hospitalized for that, and got to a place where I rejected all of my friends that were trying to help me. I was really isolated and alone and was so depressed and anxious and saw no way out that I wanted to end my life and tried to. And so coming back from that, like that would be the bottom point, right, of the lowest point where I really was not myself, not connected to myself, felt so lost. And then the recovery from that took a very long time. And through those years, at least 5 years after that, I still was dealing with all of the things that got me to that place. And one of the biggest ones was living my life for other people and not for myself. Really trying to fit into a mold of what other people expected me to be, whether that was making myself sexy for partners or trying to change how my body looked so people would like me, be skinnier or fitter so I would be more accepted, all the way up to the first business that I created, creating a business that looked really good on paper and was making a lot of money and was on this social media game that ultimately was not authentic to me. And it wasn't until I started exploring my sexuality that I finally got myself back, true, authentic self.
That's amazing. So as far as exploring your sexuality, how did you get started? Because I know some people have started to want to do that, or maybe they hear this and they're like, wow, I want to step more into my authentic self, but they're still working through breaking up with how they feel like they're supposed to show up in the world. Where did it start for you, or what were some of the biggest things that were really helpful for you when you were getting started in that exploration?
So the the year leading up to that, I was in probably the safest relationship of my life up to that point. We were relatively happy. There were some things like there always are, but I was really safe in that relationship, which was a step up for me.
Yeah.
I was not sexually satisfied. We were looking at what's our relationship to sex? What's our relationship to intimacy? Where are we inauthentic in that area? And even with him being so safe in that relationship, I was still faking orgasms. I was still acting like I enjoyed some things that I didn't enjoy. I was deprioritizing my pleasure and just wanted to hurry up and get it over with. It felt like a chore.
Mhm.
And where I started in that, honestly, was breaking up with that relationship
Mm,
and
mhm.
ending that relationship and realizing that my sexuality was a missing piece in my personal development journey. I had done so much work in my head with my mindset and no work with my body, no work with how I feel, my genuine feelings. And sex was a huge part of that, was
Yeah.
inhabiting my body and feeling my sensations and being present with my body was an entry point to that. And so how I got
Mm,
started in that, honestly, was I had some really cool friends
yeah.
that were very sexually open and wanted to talk about sex and wanted to ask me about my sex life. And I was like, wait, what? You can just talk about this? Like I can just tell you that I'm not satisfied and you
It's
want
so
to ask.
taboo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had some really good influences of people that really just pushed me to start asking questions
Mhm.
about what do I actually like in bed and why am I not getting that? And what is stopping me from being connected to my body and enjoying it? Like what's actually in the way
Y'all
there?
hit pause and write those questions down because those are really good, guys. So powerful. I don't know if you felt this, but I definitely feel like the pressure of with women and sexual satisfaction, it's almost like we were not taught to prioritize that. It was very much a function of baby making for so long. And that was just the ultimate priority. Anytime it was viewed on TV or whatever, I feel like it was always like the idea of get it over with, or women were annoyed with it. On the other end of things, if you were someone that actually did enjoy sex, then you were put in this other category of being titled different things that maybe should not be titled, as far as like, oh, you're a whore, you're a slut for all this. And it's like, no, you can absolutely enjoy that. I know that I grew up in a very conservative background, like the whole purity culture and like save yourself situation. It's very much pressured towards women versus the men, at least in my experience. But you mentioned something that I thought was really interesting, and I kind of can relate to with the mind and body. I feel like when I was doing a lot of the self work, and I'm curious if you felt the same, I was still focused a lot on the mind and I was disconnected from the body because I also struggled with disordered eating. And it was almost like through that experience, I taught myself to break up with my body and so feel almost a complete disconnect. But that just led to me feeling like I didn't even know my body at all. I didn't feel connected. It was a complete disconnect and it was really hard for me. Did you feel the same? And how were you able to shift back into your body and reconnect?
For sure. I definitely felt that. And I think most of our society really prioritizes intellect. It's part of the masculine ethos
Mhm.
is prioritizing intellect, intellectual success, being really well educated, and then all of personal development up to a point, it's focused on the mind, psychology, mindset work, affirmation, all that's language mind stuff. And there's a huge missing component there, but it's a really easy place to hide. If you have disordered eating or you don't want to feel connected to your body, you're like, oh, I can just work on myself by like
Guilty.
doing these affirmations and then it'll be fine. And that's not ultimately like it can make you feel good for a second and it can make you feel like you're solving a puzzle. But at the end of the day, that's not actually how you're going to feel consistently better. And it can leave you feeling like you are lost and you don't know
Yep.
because yourself lives in your body.
We live in our head, and I don't think that's the solution. And so to be more grounded, grounding yourself in your body, I love that you were able to recognize that and step into that. You also mentioned with a partner, you felt safe, but not sexually satisfied. And there might be some people that they're like, they almost feel guilty because maybe they have a partner who is, super supportive. Let's stick with that. So we have a partner that's super supportive. There's nothing wrong. And you almost feel guilty because they're a great partner that you're, like you said, faking orgasms and acting like you enjoy certain things that maybe you don't, or whatever those things are. So you broke that relationship, but let's stick with it. I'm in a relationship that I love. How do we start that conversation? What do we do? Do you think it starts with the conversation within yourself that you were mentioning earlier? Do you think that
Yeah.
we can step into it? Like, recovering people pleaser over here, and I know a lot of listeners are as well. That's scary as shit. So what would you recommend? Where would we start there?
Yeah, I think it's twofold if you want to stay in that relationship, because most of my clients fall into that category where they're like, oh, I'm so happy with my partner, but this one major thing, sex, is not great, or I don't feel that spark or passion. Like I feel connected and intimate, but I don't feel desire. And often that comes on at the beginning of a relationship, but then it fades because you get comfortable with them. So a lot of women come to me in that place, and there's nothing quote unquote wrong, but they feel like something is wrong with them there. So the first place to start is to know that that happens a lot. It's okay. There's nothing wrong. What that feeling, that desire in you for more is an opportunity, an invitation into more connection with your partner. So if you want to do that, if you want to work on that, there's two, like I said it before, it's twofold. There's one, starting to build a connection, a relationship to your body, which involves spending time touching yourself, feeling your skin, slowing down, repairing that relationship if it needs to be repaired. And then also in having, you can do this in tandem, having open conversations with your partner, which you mentioned is the scary part. If you're a people pleaser, it totally is. But if this partner really is as safe as you think they are, they will love to have that conversation. They want to hear from you. They want to know how they can do a better job. And you might not know how they can do a better job. You can come with that to the conversation too. You can say, hey, something is not right here. I know I've been acting like everything's good with our sex, and I'm just really wanting more. And I don't know exactly what that is, but are you open to exploring that with me? That's a beautiful opening.
It is a beautiful opening. The way that you phrase that, I think, is so well. Another thing you said, that you can work on them in tandem. I had another conversation with a different guest, and I was curious because I'm always, sometimes I think people try and separate things. They're like, okay, well, I need to put this on pause in my life and only focus on this, so only focus on me. And I just don't think it's really realistic, because I can't go live in a hole for 3 months and only focus on myself, So finding a way to do it in tandem, and I think communication is key. And even communicating with your partner, they're like, hey, I'm also doing this self-exploration. Like, there can be a lot of shame on self-pleasure, but I think the more you communicate about it, the better, at least in my experience. And that relationship with yourself goes into every other area of your life, not even just like other intimate sexual relationships, but definitely in other areas. You kind of mentioned that as well. I talk a lot about confidence, and when it comes to feeling confident in your skin, reconnecting with your body, did you feel like this process was really powerful? Did it have an impact outside of the bedroom? I'm definitely curious on that journey.
Hugely. You know how Instagram serves up like memories? Sometimes I'm like, no, I didn't want to see my ex today, but that's not
my iPhone and my Instagram, they're all throwing this at me. Yes.
I kind of love that it'll show me a story that I posted on Instagram from 2018. And then a few slides later, I'll see my face in 2021. And the difference is my sexuality. And I look different. Like I physically look different. My face looks different. Before, you can see like sadness in my eyes. Like you can see in my body that I'm inflamed, that I'm feeling not good, like not totally connected. I can see it in my face that I'm like faking the happiness. And then a few slides later, you flip forward to 2021 after I really connected and dove into my sexuality. It's like a totally different person. That's a woman that holds herself with so much ease and confidence and playfulness. And that is a huge part of sexuality too, is like, not only are you getting connection to your body and maybe working through some trauma, if you approach it in the way that I encourage people approach it, with a playful, joyful, excited, curious attitude, you also then get a connection to your playfulness, which is massive for joy and feeling good about yourself.
Yes. Okay. Play, we can definitely hit on this, is so powerful, because I think it comes back to like shame when it comes to sexuality, but then play when it comes to you're like become an adult, and it's almost like you're told you can't tap into that anymore and it's wrong or it feels weird. And we just have these walls come up. And I think those walls they impact our relationship with ourselves, they impact intimacy, they impact showing up authentically. So I found in my healing journey, play was a huge factor for me. And it almost was that I had to let go of the rule book on what I thought I was supposed to be to heal, what I was supposed to be doing, how I was supposed to show up. And I stopped letting it be so serious and just like, how can I have fun? How can I play? How can I be weird? And even taking that with my relationship and doing things that we used to do and tapping into being goofy. And, you need to feel safe in order to do that. I feel like I think I'm my most goofiest self when I'm around Tom, my husband, because I feel really safe. That was like one of the first relationships where I felt I can be fully authentic. So people who are looking to tap into play, what are things that you've done that really help you with that?
Oh my gosh. If you just copy paste everything that you just said into the bedroom, that's huge, because there's some fucking rule book somewhere that says that in the bedroom, we have to be serious. It's a very serious situation because sex is a serious thing that we have to take seriously. And then we shift into these robot roles where we're like, okay, a woman's supposed to behave like this in sex and a man is supposed to behave like this in sex. And it just looks like the movies or like porn or what you expect. Just follows this extremely boring narrative over and over and over. And you wonder why people aren't sexually satisfied. It's because there's no authenticity there and there's no playfulness there. And there's no infusion of the innocence that actually exists around sexuality. The first time you discover your body, you're probably very, very young. Most people are very, when they realize, oh, when I push this button on myself, like that feels good. Okay, that feels really nice. And then there's just this like curiosity. And maybe you played with another little kid and you were like, oh my, does your button do the same thing that my button does? Like, what is that? And there's just this innocence about it. And at some point, an adult catches you or sees you or talks to you about sex, and all of a sudden it has shame and it has a weight that's brought into it. And that's what I'm really looking to remove for a lot of people is like, there's no script. It doesn't have to go a certain way. You can laugh. You can take breaks. Your body's going to make a lot of weird noises. You can make many weird noises as you want to. And using playfulness can look like, for me, it looks like trying new toys, having separate sessions from like usual sex. So I have, with my partner, we have more regular sex where it's like, I see it as like maintenance, like we're doing this to connect. But then at least a couple times a month, we have a couple hours where we're like, this is exploration. Like this is exploration. Like we're just here, push some buttons on our body and try some new toys and see, do you like this? Do you like this? Do you like it when I say this? Does this sound feel good in my body? Like, what if I made a bird call? Like,
I love it.
That do?
Yes. I think that's so good. I think sometimes people think, okay, well, if she's super in touch with her sexuality, then that means every single sex session has to be this like crazy, out of the wild, blah, blah, blah. But you kind of mentioned like, no, like there's the maintenance of where it's just connecting intimately. And that can look in a lot of different ways. And I think for me, it was like almost coming to a level of intimacy. And then there are different variations of that, like you mentioned, around play, around sex, around other things you can do. So I love that you do that. I think that's so powerful. So for someone, let's say, they're super busy and their brain, you did a really funny reel on this actually about like your head getting in the way of that. So I'm going to ask you and then I want you to tell me the actual thing of what we should do. Okay. So if their brain is just like constantly getting distracted or they feel like they can't focus or they don't really feel like they have time to connect with their partner or even with themselves or they're not making that time, is that something where you're like, hey, let's sit down and like treat it like a schedule? Like I schedule my workouts. Are we scheduling sex at this point? Does that take out the spontaneity? What would you suggest to someone that feels very busy, bogged down, but they know that they want to start doing more of this?
If they are someone that responds really well to a schedule, 100% put sex on the schedule. Yeah. Like definitely that. If they're someone that is super busy and their life is just chaotic and they don't run by a schedule, then what I would recommend is like getting pleasure where you can in everyday life. So you're already taking a shower. So while you're in the shower, just touch your skin, just enjoy the water. If you're already putting lotion on your body when you get out of the shower or at any point, like just feel what it feels like to put that on. you're putting clothes on every day. So pick something that feels really good on your skin and feel what it feels like. Put it on. When you get into bed at night, you're doing that every day. Snuggle down into the covers and like feel how good your sheets feel, and let that be pleasure. If you're drinking a coffee every single day, just spend a couple minutes actually tasting the coffee instead of sucking it down for the caffeine.
I love this because I think it takes people from the idea of something having to be 0 to 100 to finding that like micro pleasure every single day. Like I call it like pockets of joy, but I love the idea of just small points of pleasure and slowing things down and just being more present. Because I think that was huge for me when I was feeling disconnected from my body. It was like, okay, I'm going to put on the clothes and dodge the mirror. I'm going to shower. I ain't looking in that steamy mirror. I'm going to, maybe rub on lotion real quick. But it was very much the utilitarian, I have to do this, and shifting more into like, how can I make this feel more pleasurable? How can I add play into this? How can I add joy? How can I add that sensuality nature? Because it doesn't have to just be sex. And I think that shifted to where I was more open to exploring my sexuality, to doing all these things, because I tapped in those smaller levels of pleasure and almost allowed myself to have that. I didn't have to necessarily earn it. I was able to create it every single day. And like, it almost trained my brain that I was like, hey, I'm allowed to have this every single day. I can embrace it. So do you feel like that builds on itself? Is that something you would definitely?
Oh, totally. And I actually want to touch on what you said about earning it. One of my mentors has this line that I think is so good, where he's like, yeah, most people think that pleasure is very costly. Like it has some cost to it, expensive, right? Like we have to earn it. We have to like bank up all of these points of work to enjoy and have a reward of pleasure. Or maybe it's costly in that you feel guilty when you experience it. So when you have pleasure, there's a cost to that pleasure, which is that you feel bad about it. So actually, pleasure is an investment in your life. It's enriching to your life. It doesn't cost anything to have, and it actually pays you back.
Ooh, just take that in real quick, guys, because I think we needed to hear that. Like, you guys can accept and embrace that pleasure now, and you don't have to earn it. And you are worthy of it as you are now. And that can be hard because society doesn't always teach us that. The things that we see is like people looking a certain way, being a specific size, having to focus on being sexy for a partner. You mentioned this, and I thought that was really powerful of like, okay, I've only tried to be sexy for my partner, but then I don't really feel like I'm connected to it. And I'm really struggling with that. So then sometimes people just do the opposite. And they just, again, they're just completely cut off from feeling like they can step into that sexuality. Maybe they've had kids and they're like struggling to reconnect with that. Maybe they're in a specific job where I know you've talked about masculine and feminine, but maybe they're having to step into that a little bit more where they feel like they can't step into that like flowy goddess energy. So what did you do with that? Because I found when I was younger and I was dressing sexy or whatever it was, there was, again, a level of shame with that. How do we break up with that? How do we tap into our feeling sexy again? Like, what can we do?
Well, it's going to be different for every single person, right? Like we have maybe some traditional images in our brain of like what is explicitly sexy to society, right? Like gyrating our hips in a certain way, or moving our body in a certain way, or moaning or wearing lingerie. But I feel sexy when I'm being my authentic self. And that looks like being a fucking goofball most of the time, like just so off the wall, silly, crazy. My hair looks crazy. I'm in a crazy outfit that, is not traditionally sexy. And so everyone is going to have to find what it is that makes them feel sexy. And I like to shift the question because sometimes it's really hard to think about, okay, well, how do I feel sexy? To what makes you feel alive?
What makes you feel alive? What makes you feel confident? I love that.
What makes you feel like yourself? Like, what is it that makes you feel like you? Because whatever that is also sexy. Like, if you feel like you when you're out gardening and your hands are covered in dirt, fuck yeah, that's you. If you feel sexy when you're like walking on the beach, or you feel like yourself when you're in nature or when you're in the woods, that's sexy. Like however you are when you're most alive and you're most yourself, like that is what sexy is for you.
I'm so glad you hit on this because I talk about that with confidence is like, it's going to look different for everyone. And I think sometimes like you said, we've been taught certain things to define that. And it's like, no, we have to define it for ourselves. And so be open to being curious, be open to exploring it. And I think it's like being open to it and then having to release like the fear of judgment as well. Because like being goofy, authentic self, it can be really hard. So something I've done is people do these hot girl walks and I do my Adam Sandler stroll instead. So basically what I mean is like, I'm putting on the weirdest, like just crazy amount of clothes. I look like a crazy cluster person walking around. And I do this because I'm out in my city and I'm like, who cares if someone sees me and I look crazy? Like, it's okay. I'm wearing my like frownies that I wear. Y'all know it's like my little. So I'm just walking around like that. And, it might be like, oh my gosh, how could you leave the house like that? But that helps me remember that like, I don't need to take life so seriously. I can be part-time hot. I can show up and still feel really confident in my skin. Really is whatever works for you. And I love that you hit on this. I think it's so powerful. And so thank you for saying that. And thank you for helping remind people that it can look different and it's allowed to look different for everyone. I think that just needed to be said. So I think that's huge.
And it can be like, you can try on different stuff too. Like if the lingerie makes you feel sexy, fucking wear it. Great. Yeah. Amazing. Like try that on. Try on Adam Sandler walk. Try on goofing around and being a bird call lady. Like try on whatever you are drawn to. That's how you figure it out. Like it may be awkward and uncomfortable, or it may be like instant click. And
exactly.
That's, whatever that is.
And either way, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. Like you said, if it doesn't click instantly, like that's still a part of the process and it's good and it can be fun and you can laugh about it. Especially in the bedroom. I feel like some of the best sex I've had still ends with laughter. And like we were cracking up at the weirdest thing that happened, but it was still so amazing and still such a great way to connect and a healing thing when it comes to releasing that shame and starting to heal and reconnect with your body again. I know you've talked a lot about recovering as a people pleaser, and I really relate to that I think I spent a long time trying to please others. And so that's where my brain would go immediately. All I was worried about was worrying about pleasing others, let alone my own pleasure. That was just never even on the table. If someone is working on breaking up with that or just working on being able to receive pleasure, but they just have blocks come up, whether it's people-pleasing things or other things coming up, how can they receive more pleasure? How can they work through those blocks that are coming up? And maybe some of your top examples you see if you want to take it like that.
For sure. So there's like 4 main blocks to pleasure that I see pretty consistently that come up. There's one that is like, something's wrong with me. Like I'm never going to feel pleasure. I'm never going to be able to feel good because there's something wrong with me, or I can't be myself because there's something wrong with me. There's disloyalty or abandonment. So if I am betraying people, or if I am receiving pleasure, then people are going to leave me, or I'll be ultimately alone. There is the third one, which is that success is a burden, or feeling pleasure is a burden, or feeling good is a burden, or if I feel good, then I'm a burden to other people. And then the last one is the outshining one. So feeling guilty, like if I'm feeling too much pleasure, I'm taking it away from other people and I feel bad. Or if I feel totally good and totally myself, then other people will feel bad. Whenever I identify whatever those are, my approach is just to get really compassionate. So instead of trying to barrel through whatever your blocks to pleasure are, or whatever are your blocks to feeling good are, instead of trying to push them away or push through them, like really actively getting curious about what's going on really when those come up. Like, is there a part of you that really needs some tending to? Are these protecting you from something? Have they historically been really useful? Being really compassionate with what that is, with what's coming up, instead of pushing it away or fighting against it. When you hold space for the block, when you actually get curious about it and get really compassionate with it, it opens up in a way that's really soft and really tender. Like there's something underneath there that really needs some care. And it's very similar actually to the process that I use with women who have blocks to pleasure or pain in their vulva or like freezing with penetration. Take slowness and tenderness and just being with whatever comes up and going really, really, really slow so you can be with yourself through every micro sensation. And when you do that, when you give a lot of time and attention and care, it just opens up. There's just on the other side of that. There's just love on the other side of that. And it's a slower approach than a quick push through.
I think that could be used in so many areas of life of just like taking a slower approach opposed to pushing through. Because anytime we're hitting adversity, sometimes people are like, oh, just push through it. Like with anything, anytime. So it's like almost in our nature, not even necessarily our nature, but it's what we've been taught to do of like, just push through it. So I love that you said, slow it down, allow yourself space. And that almost is showing you like, hey, I deserve the time. I deserve the compassion and the grace. And just hearing that, I'm just like, oh, I hope everyone listens to this episode because it is so good, y'all. Everything you're doing to help women is just so powerful. And as y'all can hear, she's talking about healing so much more than just the sex in the bedroom. But like that is such a key component that we tend to just walk right over. Like, okay, I've checked all the boxes. I'm in a relationship or I'm doing all the things. I'm successful in every other area of my life. So maybe I don't need to worry about it. I just appreciate you sharing that. I think it's so powerful.
You're so welcome.
Yeah.
I think the reason why I focus on sex, like why that the thing for me is like, that is a direct line. It's a direct gateway into your insecurities, into where you're being inauthentic, because you're the most vulnerable in sex. You're literally naked with yourself or with another person. And so who are you when all of the masks are off? Like, who are you when you're behind closed doors alone or with one person? Like, there's so much juice in that.
And there's power in that vulnerability. And so that's what I love that you hit on this, because I talk about feeling good naked and it throws people off. They're like, wait, what? And it's like, no, but there's so much more than that. It's feeling good naked is in feeling good in your most vulnerable state. So yes, being naked in the bedroom, but also being naked in other areas of your life to where you're not having to put up that mask. You're able to communicate freely with your needs and desires and passions and pleasures. And you being able to open that up and let people know, hey, this is normal. We're taking taboo topics and recognizing like, hey, this faking orgasm, you're not alone in that. Let's talk about that. Let's break it down. Let's see how we can break through it. Oh, this desire or pleasure that you have, you're not alone in that. And so I just think that's so, so powerful. And I love everything that you're doing. And I'm just, thank you so much, Hannah. I appreciate you being here.
I love this.
This is great. Yes. Okay. We are going to shift into rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So I get to ask you just some fun, random questions, and then we'll kind of close out, and you guys can make sure you guys are following everywhere with Hannah. I'll leave it in the show notes, but yeah, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. What is your current like Netflix binge, or the last one that you were like, I have to watch every single thing?
Oh God, I hate those questions.
I didn't say favorite color, so let's work with it.
I'm currently watching from the beginning Vanderpump Rules.
Okay, you are not alone. A lot of people are watching it. I don't even know what it is. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's honestly straight up trash TV. I watch it because I work so hard all day, and I'm just like, fuck it.
It's the
like,
perfect disconnect.
Just like,
oh my gosh,
someone else's drama.
Y'all, if you listen to Meg Eleni's episode on here, guys, which we have a similar connection there, but she was like trash TV. Like that is what it is. So I love it. So good. So random one. What is your favorite sound or noise?
Someone making a really deep sigh.
It's like in breath work when they like, I love that. That's so good. Okay, this is a weird one. What was your like AIM screen name when you were a kid?
It was Banana Head 13.
Oh my God, mine was banana as well. Mine had banana in it as well. And I'm not kidding. I have not even shared. It was like chocolate Nana 1. And it made me sound like, which I have a Black grandma, it made me sound like I was saying like chocolate Nana 1. Literally, I said I like chocolate covered bananas, and that was my thing. So I'm glad yours was ultimately just as weird as mine.
Yes.
Was yours because of banana thing too?
Well, it's because my name rhymes with banana.
You have way more reason to be Hannah Banana than I do.
For sure.
I have zero reason.
Yeah. No, yours is way weirder.
Way weirder. Yeah, I have no idea where it came from. I love this. Well, thank you for sharing that. And then finally, confidently uncomfortable. That's what this podcast is all about. So I want to know, like, in your life, where are we expanding? Like, what's one thing you're working towards that is pretty uncomfortable outside your comfort zone that you're still really looking forward to, excited about?
So I'm working on creating art and channeling creative energy outside of my work. So doing something that has nothing to do with making money. It just is a creative outlet and expression. So I recently started collaging. So I'm like cutting up old photographs, cutting up pictures from children's books and from postcards that people have sent me, and building these emotionally expressive, layered pictures that are just for fun. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's so important. I don't know, like, if it's a millennial thing, but being told everything kind of have a reason, or it was like working towards something, or if you tried something or had a hobby, it was like, you had to be the best at it. You had to go all in with it. So I think that is an amazing practice. I'm so glad you're doing that, of just being like, hey, this is a creative outlet and it doesn't have to have like a money-making scheme behind it. So that's so powerful. Oh, okay. So people listen to this and some of them are like, I need to know more. I need to know everything Hannah has to share because it's just been so powerful. Like, how can they connect with you, possibly work with you? Like, tell me a little bit more.
For sure. So I hang out mostly on Instagram and TikTok. So I'm sure Jordan will link
In the show notes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if I love conversations with people. So if you just have a question or a problem, please slide in my DMs. Just ask me. I'm super available for that. If you want to work with me in a deeper capacity, the next level up would be my membership called the Community, spelled CUM, Community.
Love it.
Yeah.
Wordplay.
We love a pun. And it's just a woman only space where you can just come and talk and learn about sex. And we have calls. I'm educating in there and have challenges. It's super fun. And I also have a couple spaces available for private clients.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we're also putting in the show notes some awesome freebies we have when it comes to self-touch practice from Hannah, and then likes and limits for sexploration. So if you are in a relationship, that can be a really good one too, or just to go through in general and know what to look for. But I am so grateful for just everything you've been sharing today, as well as the stuff you're continuing to share on your platform. All you're doing is making such a beautiful impact in the world. So thank you for letting us be a part of it today. And I look forward to seeing all that you continue to create, Hannah.
Thank you so much, Jordan. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.